What's up everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Michael Chiesa and Conor McGregor settle lawsuit from infamous bus incident. Way back in 2018, fresh off of being stripped of the lightweight title, Conor McGregor arrived in New York City to defend his longtime friend and training partner, Artem Lobov, after Khabib Nurmagomedov and his team cornered Artem in the days leading up to his scrap with Alex Caceres. The situation saw Nurmagomedov grab Lobov by the back of the neck while asking where McGregor was. In almost cinematic fashion, McGregor loaded up his private jet and flew over to New York, where he attacked a bus carrying Nurmagomedov and his team as it left Barclays Center in Brooklyn. With little regard for the other fighter inside the bus, McGregor began to smash the bus windows with whatever he could get his hands on before eventually throwing a dolly through the window that injured several fighters inside, including Michael Chiesa and Rose Namajunas. As a result, Chiesa suffered a cut above his eye that resulted in his fight with Anthony Pettis to be scrapped at the last minute. Since then, Chiesa's legal team has been battling McGregor in court, with the two sides reportedly reaching a mutual agreement for a settlement amount that has not been disclosed. As the old saying goes, out of the frying pan and into the fire. McGregor is now engaged in a legal battle with Artem Lobov, the man he was defending in the bus incident. Lobov is looking to secure himself part of proper number 12 Irish whiskey, after claiming he did much of the work in the brand's early stages. Chiesa has been sidelined for over a year now after dropping his second straight loss. According to the Ultimate Fighter winner, he's been dealing with a back injury that has prevented him from returning to active competition. Jorge Masvidal sends shots at Gilbert Burns once again. Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns have been engaged in quite the public back and forth as of late. Ahead of the UFC's upcoming Rio de Janeiro card next year, Burns was eager to book a fight with the BMF. While seeking a fight, he accused Masvidal of turning down a bout with him, something that didn't sit too well with the two-time welterweight title challenger. Masvidal shot back in an interview, explaining that he wasn't able to accept the fight before as a result of circumstances that kept him out of the octagon. Now, however, with those behind him, he explained he was eager to meet Burns in the octagon at the expected Edwards vs. Usman trilogy card next year. Shortly after that, it was announced that Burns would meet Neil Magny in a highly anticipated showdown in Rio at UFC 283. The way Masvidal saw things, the only reason Burns called him out in the first place was because he was looking for followers online. During a recent interview, he elaborated on those comments, firing off another warning shot at Burns, saying,
I put the word out there, tell Michael Hunter, and he freaking guess what? Sends on the contract to Gilbert and says, no, I don't want to fight. I want to fight in Brazil. So go fight in Brazil, man. Just keep my name out of your mouth, bro. Every time he mentions my name, he gets a couple thousand followers. So I guess that's the gimmick he's doing, you know?
With the news of Burns booking a fight against Magny, Masvidal is seemingly the odd man out. With no word on other potential fights, we now turn to you. Who do you want to see the BMF fight when he makes his return to the octagon in the hopes of snapping his 3-fight skid? The UFC finds replacement opponents for December and books 2 new fights for March. The UFC has officially found 2 replacement opponents for the upcoming UFC Vegas 66 card at the UFC Apex on December 17. At the same time, we've received word that 2 exciting fights have been booked for next year. First up, we have a replacement opponent for Rinat Fakhretdinov, who had his UFC Vegas 66 fight put into question after his original opponent, Michael Morales, was forced out of the fight. According to reports, Brian Battle will be stepping up in short notice to fight in just 2 short weeks. Battle is currently in the midst of a lengthy win streak that has seen him go 3-0 inside the octagon. On the flip side, he'll be facing an opponent who hasn't lost since 2014 in Fakhretdinov. On that same card, we now have Cody Brundage stepping in for Albert Duraev against Michael Oleksiejczuk. Brundage, who made his UFC debut last year when he lost to Nick Maximov, has since picked up 2 straight first-round victories. Standing across from him, come December 17, will be Michael Oleksiejczuk, who returned to the win column at the end of the summer when he defeated Sam Alvey via first-round KO. Next up, we have a March 11th clash between Cedric Dumas and Abu Azaitar. The fight will see the undefeated Dumas make his debut on the big stage after earning a contract on Dana White's Contender Series back in August. Across from him in the octagon will be Captain Morocco, Abu Azaitar, who hasn't fought since his UFC 260 loss to Marc-Andre Barriault. The win came 3 years after his decision victory over Vitor Miranda and marked a successful return to active competition. Last but certainly not least, we have a clash between Andrea KGB Lee and Macy Barber for an event on March 25th. Lee will be looking to bounce back from a loss to Vivian Araujo earlier this year that snapped a 2-fight win streak in 2021. Standing in her way will be Macy Barber, who is fresh off a win over Jessica Ai this summer that extended her win streak to 3. With Barber eager to climb the flyweight rankings, it'll be interesting to see if she can crack the top 10 with a potential win over Lee. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Daniel Cormier weighs in on Glover Teixeira's decision to decline short-notice UFC 282 fight. When light heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka was forced out of his upcoming UFC 282 main event showdown with Glover Teixeira, the former champion had the opportunity to accept a short-notice fight against Magomed Ankalaev on the card, but ultimately turned it down. As a result, the UFC wound up promoting the co-main event fight between Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev to the main event and subsequently made that fight for the vacant light heavyweight title. With Prochazka sidelined for at least a year after suffering an injury that is supposedly one of the worst shoulder injuries UFC doctors have ever seen, many wondered what was next for Teixeira. At over 40 years old, Teixeira is undoubtedly in the twilight years of his career. After declining the fight with Ankalaev, he explained that he'd be willing to fight him, but not without adequate time to prepare. In the wake of the revelation, UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier spoke about his decision, admitting that he likely would have made the same one.
But Glover Teixeira also understands that if you give him Jan Blachowicz, he has fought him before, he's done training camps for him before. Magomed Ankalaev is an unknown, Ryan. Nobody knows what this kid really is, especially being that he's so highly regarded. If he was just a young kid that nobody knew, that wasn't thought to be a future champion, I think anyone would jump at the opportunity to become champ. But again, we're talking about a 43-year-old man who has been the UFC champion,
DC, I have a question.
The best of the best.
With Teixeira passing up the fight, many have predicted that he could face the winner of Blachowicz versus Ankalaev, while Yuri Prochazka heals up for their rematch. And now for our breaking news story of the day.
And we want to thank you for the great determination that you display every time you step into a fight. And I want you to know that that same great determination is built into the very fabric of the city that you represent. It is an honor to be here to present you on behalf of the city of Stockton with this key to the city. Congratulations, brother. You got to thank you.
I want to say it's an honor. Thank you very much to Stockton, California for rocking with me. I'm rocking with Stockton all the time. And I want to shout out and say thanks to my family over here in this corner. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. And I want to say shout out to my team on top in the corner up here. You already know what's up. I'm Neil Burns, repping Stockton. I ain't going nowhere. And I appreciate the support. Love everybody. And let's go. Stockton team. Love you. Already know what's up.
Ariel Helwani disappointed by Usman, Cejudo, and Gaethje visiting Ramzan, Kadyrov. Recently, Dominance MMA fighters Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, and Henry Cejudo all traveled to Chechnya to celebrate the birthday of notorious dictator Ramzan Kadyrov's son. As part of the celebration, the trio went to a shooting range where footage was captured of the three men for a Chechen propaganda video. The photos and videos drew controversy as many questioned why the fighters were traveling to visit a dictator who currently has sanctions imposed on him by the US government. Unsurprisingly, the fighters' involvement was traced back to Ali Abdelaziz, who frequently seems to supply high-profile fighters to Kadyrov for public events. During a recent episode of the MMA Hour, Ariel Helwani spoke about the fighters' disappointing involvement, saying,
"Given how this country, whom they are proud citizens of, who the likes of Henry Cejudo has represented on the world stage, who the likes of Justin Gaethje walks to his fights holding the flag of, who the likes of Kamaru Usman has said gave him and his family, a better life and opportunity and the American dream and all this stuff. And in this climate, to go over there and partake in this stuff, when this country views that individual as a war criminal, as a dictator, What are you thinking?
When it comes to Kadyrov using his influence to lure in MMA fighters, the common response is that fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Khamzat Chimaev, who live within Kadyrov's reach, don't have much of a choice. Given that fighters like Fedor Emelianenko have felt the wrath of Kadyrov firsthand for speaking out against him, many give Russian fighters a pass for appeasing the dictator. When it comes to fighters like Gaethje and Cejudo, it seems many are not giving the American fighters the same leeway. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and also subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all of the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.